Everyone stand down and stand the fuck by.
Everyone froze where they were, Val included. Since returning to civilian life, I'd made a conscious effort not to use Army voice around civilians, since it tended to shock people. But I'd sorta had it.
I finally get one goddamned hour to myself in this whole run, and y'all start some schoolyard shit while I'm out?
Marilla started to speak, and I cut her off.
Shut the f*** up. Ducky, what happened?
Ducky looked legitimately afraid just then as she hopped forward, which I felt bad about, but not much I could do at the moment as she started in.
Well, it was okay at first. I mean, we were all curious about what the conversation was about. Then we got the stuff from Hearth, and Marilla got mad. Val tried to calm her down, and then Marilla said something about her daughter, and Val punched her. Azaku got to her first, but not before she hit her. And then, well, Azaku called for Ragnar and Greltha. The Skrens hid, and Hoda and Traeg started making bets on how long the fight would go.
Thank you, Ducky.
I turned and marched toward Marilla. Her guard stood up to block me, and fuck, I can't remember his name right now. I punched him in the throat and stepped past him as he fell, calling over to the Traeg to have him restrained.
You want to explain to me when you thought that taking a swing at her kid was relevant?
It's your fault.
She stayed on the ground as she spoke.
Answer my question!
I was really done with shit like this. I was starting to shake from the anger, and I could feel the pain in my ribs from it. Marilla took a moment and composed herself.
There wasn't. I lost my temper, and I'm sorry, Keith.
I am not the one you owe the apology to. Stand up and hold.
And I offered her my hand to help her up. Marilla on her feet, I turned.
Val, come here, please.
Val came up, not afraid, but still a bit pissed.
Val, I was a dad. I get it. And if it was just some daft bitch in a bar, it wouldn't even be a thing. But we're fighting for all our lives here, and we can't be getting into fights like this. What did she say exactly?
Val took a steadying breath.
Well, when she wasn't getting anywhere with calling me an unfit mother, she decided to call me a slattern, called Cassie a bastard, and she didn't get to whatever it was she was about to say after that.
I gave it a moment, nodding.
All right. Here it is, both of you. We are all on edge here. We've been pushed to the brink for a week, physically, mentally, emotionally, and it's impossible to believe that we're all just gonna get along and be friends. All of us are in this to save our people, and that's its own weight on top of everything else. I don't need us to be friends, but we have to have respect for each other, or this whole thing goes up in flames. So from now on, and this is for everyone, if you've got an issue with each other, bring it to me. If you guys probably all have issues with me, bring those to me too. I'm in charge, that's the job. Now both of you, apologize for your parts in it, and then hug, brofist, high five, whatever you want to do to signify that this fight ends here and now.
I called Ducky back over and knelt down to speak to her.
I'm sorry for scaring you, hun. I was mad, but not at you, okay? Can you get Shin and have him let the Skrens know the situation's resolved?
She nodded and...
Thank you, Keith. And I'm sorry we ruined your alone time.
It's fine, Bit. Mistakes happen, and I'm sorry for yelling at you. You didn't do anything wrong.
I hugged her before she bounded off after Shin. I turned back to see Val explaining what a brofist was to not only Marilla, but Asoku and the Goal, who wanted to know what it was now that the fight was stopped. I helped with the demonstration, then went over to where Marilla's guard was.
I'm sorry for hitting you. That wasn't about you, so much as getting a point across, not just between them, but the rest of the group, the Goals especially.
He nodded, but one of the side points of getting throat punched is, well, you're really not in a talking mood. He did, however, hold up a fist for the brofist, and I obliged. I dispersed everyone and stopped by the Enod tent, where I heard a baby crying. Zara was there trying to soothe her, but nothing seemed to be working.
Hey, ma'am. Sorry about the ruckus out there and my part in it. Anything I can do to help?
She a long, slow hiss of breath.
It's fine, Keith. It's not just the noise. She's cold. Our species doesn't retain body heat well, and I'm doing my best.
God damn it, I hadn't asked. I mean, cats on Earth essentially had the same problem, which is why they would tend to sleep on each other. and take naps in sunny places where it was warmer.
Hang on, we can help with her. First, do you trust me to hold on to her? My species is endothermic. We generate our own heat.
She made a motion with her hand and held up the child. Thinking about it, Nogrex hadn't run into an issue, since we'd done nothing but pump him full of warm water and hot broth since he'd woken up from his fainting episode. I turned to walk out of the shelter, but signaled her to come out with me, walking over to the fire with her as her daughter began to settle from the warmth.
Okay, now, I gotta go grab some things, and I'll be right back, okay?
What I was after was our stunning trade in jackalope pelts. They were softly furred animals, so I wouldn't need to worry it would irritate the baby's skin. For a while, I just sat at the fire with Zira, offering her some leftover popcorn and snacks, while I grabbed some sticks and reeds that had been gathered for making baskets. I used them to make a basic framework, then added stitched-together jackalope pelts to make a backwoods bassinet, complete with some pieces that could be closed over top to hold in the heat a bit better, while also making sure the kid would get air. It took a bit, but Zara was positively beaming when I presented it to her. I even pointed out that she could put warm stones from near the fire in the gap at the bottom to provide a heat source, and promised to work on some more solutions for them all so they could be comfortable. After Mom and Baby went off to bed, I was back to my own devices again for a bit. Val was in the shelter, though I doubted she was asleep. Likely she was trying to come down still from the night's events. I decided to let her have her space for the moment since I needed a minute myself. Once everything quieted down, I banked the fires the Rathani wouldn't need, dropped off an extra warming stone for the Aenod, and came into my own shelter. Val was laying in my hammock, and unless I was very much incorrect, rather unclothed beneath the Afghan and sleeping bag. She had, however, fallen asleep. I'm an idiot. Now, my will said, "Oh yes, we've got this," while my ribs were more like, "The fuck you do." However, I was also at least smart enough to know that if I went to her hammock, it would look like I spurned her, so to middle ground. I stripped down myself and gingerly climbed into the hammock with her. She did stir a little bit, but rolled into position, and I kissed her forehead, feeling her body laying against my own. I meant to stay up for a bit and just sort of luxuriate in the moment, but I lost that fight fast. I was fully out inside of 10 minutes. It was the first honest night's sleep I'd fully gotten since before this event started. No dreams of another life came to me. No fear when the dreams ended. I even slept late for once, and by the time I came to, Val was looking down at me, her curly red hair fully unbound by braids or straps, and my ribs fully lost the fight, and it was all I could do to think to hit privacy mode and think to hearth that we weren't to be disturbed before I lost control of things. When we did eventually exit the tent, it was very clear that everyone knew what had happened. 2 telepaths, Asu hearing, and Ducky having no ability not to air every thought she ever had seen to that. Even Marilla was smirking as we came over for breakfast, where Azoku offered up a brofist for me as I took a seat on the rock next to him. As we ate, however, all of our wristbands beeped an alert. We put up the holo and it was Ravajatik in full game master.
Good morning, viewers and survivors, and welcome to another amazing day of pre-warp survival. As our regular viewers well know, we have come to the point in the competition where we will face our first survival event.
Oh, Christ, I hadn't accounted for that, but he'd mentioned offhandedly that there would be other rules later. This was one of them, apparently. Ravajatik made a big show of things, clearly taking some joy in whatever responses he was getting.
And what is our first event? Well, my viewers, my survivors, it is the gathering storm. Our advanced weather satellites are tracking a major storm that will make landfall in just 48 hours. With winds as high as 50 miles per hour, hailstones, and pouring rain, this storm stands as one of the strongest ever recorded in the history of the Kathrall. May the Emperor reign eternal.
I looked at Val and mouthed, "Strongest?" To which she shrugged, and I looked around the rest of the table as they heard the news. Their reactions were very different than ours. They were terrified. I did a short whistle, signaled Hearth, and sent along my thoughts. "Guys, it's fine. Both me and Val have been in worse storms than this. We designed the yurts expecting Earth weather." Unintentionally, this had the effect of showing everyone Earth's storms, And what started as incredulous looks turned to sheer shock as they saw the times I'd watched storms roll in, back home, and even the times I'd witnessed tornadoes touch down. Ravajatik was still talking as we did this.
Now, of course, with such peril at hand, we here at Pre-Warp Survival also have prizes for those who weather the storm's fury. Prizes will be given out to all competitors who are not eliminated due to the storm or by side effects of the storm, such as starvation, injury, hypothermia, or other medical issues. For each survivor, complete the event to get an item to help you in the event to come, and one item from home. Best of luck to all of our competitors. May the Emperor reign eternal.
The transmission cut off, and we sat quietly for a moment before I started in.
Okay, 24-hour working party. We need those shelters finished quick as we can. We also to need raid all our old campsites for everything left there, and see if we can wrangle up the others. We've got 2 days to batten down the hatches, and we can do this.
While the storm, by all accounts, wouldn't be all that bad by Earth standards, there were still concerns. For one, we didn't have any modern housing to shield us from it, so we were going to need to finish up the yurts and make sure they could stand up to it. We wouldn't be able to build enough for everyone either. Yet, second to that, hailstones. Now, the wind speed wasn't high, at least not by the standards of Earth, but that still leaves us with rocks falling from the sky. My designs had originally just used the tarps for the roof to make it easier on us, but that wouldn't be enough to protect from hail, so thatching roofs just got added to the list. First, we needed folks in the right groups, and Val seemed ready on that count.
Okay, top of the order. Treg, I'm pulling you from hunting. You're great, but you're physically the strongest one here, and we need you over with the Rothani on getting lumber. Ducky, Shin, and Skrenz need you guys to communicate with everyone where their original camps were, then go scavenge anything you can. Hoda, head down to the river and reset the nets across the full river for right now. We'll need as much as we can before the storm sets in. Marilla, Fian, and Nogrex will need you all getting firewood, much as you can, and get it somewhere dry, as well as thatch for the roofs. For the rest of us, we'll be getting the building going. Everyone, break after we eat.
After breakfast, everyone moved off to their assigned tasks. The Asu went around to everyone and ended up taking Prodigal with them and the Skrenz to find the camps quicker as they got descriptions. Hoda replaced the nets quickly and came back up, joining the building team as we laid into it directly. By now, the first shelter was mostly built. The structure was 2 rings of vertical logs, one just outside the other, with a section arranged to allow for a fireplace and a chimney. Between those logs, we dropped branches and such, creating a level of insulation. If not great, it would at least be something. Then it was a matter of laying out and tying down the tarps on top of the structure, which came down to Val and Hoda climbing up and working. Merla and Fian made semi-regular trips back, Fian dragging container shell loads of firewood and brush. I, meanwhile, began lashing doors together. Ensuring they were properly measured and could pivot was more fiddly than difficult. There was a sweet spot to it, so that the door would stay mostly still, but not be difficult to open and be insulated as well. Then there was the matter of latching. On the inside, I made a strap-in hook to be able to lock the door from the inside, while on the outside, an actual latch was used. I had to redo it a couple of times to get it done properly, but that's just how things work in the wilderness. Try a thing that should work, find out it doesn't, swear, try again, swear, and repeat the process until it's all functional. It was a few hours later, as I was laying down my completed doors, that my wristband beeped, and by reaction, so did Val's. Hitting the green button, up popped Annabelle, and the look on her face was dire.
Afternoon, Miss Annabelle. I reckon now ain't the beat.
Keith, listen, they showed us footage of the storm, some of it the initial view of the storm forming, but they've been giving us a live feed of it, and their estimates are off, way off.
She said, all trace of the anchor woman missing from her talk.
Their readings are from when the storm first started forming, and they haven't been tracking it much since. It got bigger, somewhere in the neighborhood of Cat 1. Right now, though, it's back building along from the mountains to the northeast of your position.
Shit.
And how is it they ain't got this info, Annabelle?
Annabelle shrugged.
Our best guess is that they're telling the truth. The storm they're pointing out to you is the worst storm their species has ever recorded. As in, at all. I'd be very surprised if they bothered advancing their meteorology past the necessity point.
Fuck. It made sense. Meteorology on Earth had only truly advanced because it was necessary, because storms on Earth could be so incredibly severe, including such fun as tropical storms, tornadoes, hurricanes, and blizzards, and each with their own categorizations of how much the storm would be capable of destroying. Fundamentally, if the Kathrall had never had to be on the receiving end of worse than a tropical storm, then they wouldn't be likely to devote significant research to that point.
All right, Miss Annabelle, so figure it's back building. If it's a 1 now, that'll put her, 2, possible 3 when she drops on us?
Annabelle nodded soberly as my wrist beeped again, and pressing the button now brought up Ravaja Tick alongside Annabelle.
Survivor Keith, we here with the Kathrall Dominion, may the Emperor reign eternal, noticed your conversation with your liaison. What do these numbers mean?
Give me a sec, Rav. Gotta get folks squared away real quick.
I said, turning.
Val, storm's gonna be a 2 or a 3. We need windbreaks along the ridgeline.
Val swore and started directing Hoda, and I turned back to my screens.
All right now, y'all. Where were we? Right. Miss Annabelle, could I get your help on showing him images and whatnot? Figure this'll go quicker if we got something to show him. Rav, the CAT stands for a scale we use for storms on Earth. It's a measure of size, general wind force, how much the sucker eats, or destroys, as far as storms go. Now, to put it to you in a way y'all get, the storm you told us about wouldn't make the scale, just a tropical storm, and off we trot. Sure, it's not great if you're off in the woods like, but it ain't nothing to write home about, if you catch my meaning. Cat 1 is where it starts to pick up. There are 6 categories, and we use them to rate things like hurricanes, tornadoes, and other severe storms.
Ravaja Tick showed interest in this, leaning forward a little.
You keep mentioning these tornadoes. What are they?
Oh, God damn it.
Well, damn. Miss Annabelle, while I talk about this, could you have your boys in the booth bring up a string of videos of tornadoes, from F0 to F5? I'll need to be showing him or he won't get it. Basically, Rav, the naders are wind funnels that are sometimes created due to storm fronts on Earth. Particular regions, such as my home state of Tennessee, are sorta in the perfect spot for 'em, and we get 'em pretty much every year around the same time, since that's when the conditions for it come together.
Annabelle brought up a video of a small tornado moving along. Ravaja Tick eyes bugged out at the sight.
And this? This is a real weather event on Earth?
I moved Annabelle's screen so that I could use it the same way a weatherman would, while keeping my focus on Ravaja Tick.
Sure as shootin', buddy. Now this right here's an F1 tornado. You're looking at sustained wind speeds of 75 to 110 miles an hour.
110 miles per hour?
Ravaja Tick wasn't just being the host at this point. He seemed legitimately terrified at the concept.
Yes, sir. Sustained, not gusts. Now again, this sucker's an F1. After 112, we pick us up on F2 tornadoes, and they'll go up to about 157 miles per hour. Miss Annabelle's team's been kind enough to provide an example of one for us now.
And stepped a little away from the screen to let Ravaja Tick and the viewers get a closer look on their own. Ravaja Tick looked ill as he began speaking again, obviously having been signaled by someone off camera that he had dead air.
I don't believe we need to see the other videos on the subject, Survivor Keith. How did humans learn to avoid these sorts of natural disasters on Earth?
I cocked my head.
Avoid?
Yes, avoid. So obviously your people would need to be more nomadic, moving away from the afflicted areas during the season of occurrence each year.
Ravaja Tick was feeling much easier now.
We don't. People live there. And I mean, hell, going out on the porch to watch the storm roll in's nearly a national pastime.
He was agape.
Why would you stay there?
Look, Mr. Rav, you don't get it. Let's say we got our asses out of there like you want, right? If and we go east to the coast, it's hurricanes instead of tornadoes, and we might still get the tornadoes. If we head out west, we got big mountain storms and the desert to the south. West of that, and we got the West Coast wildfires every summer. Going north, we got blizzards and whatnot on up there. And south, well, that's just getting us both the tornadoes and the hurricanes. So I mean, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Other places even got worse stuff, like Hawaii has volcanoes erupting on it. Went to see it one time. It was pretty neat.
I closed Annabelle's window and front faced to Ravajatik.
Look, what you're not getting here is pretty simple. Our world's been trying to kill us for 250,000 years that we've existed as a species, and it has failed, spectacularly at that. So yeah, we're pretty well versed in these sorts of things, Mr. Rav. Don't expect we'll have us much trouble making it through this upcoming storm.
I closed the final screen and turned to see Marilla and Fionn return from their most recent wood gathering run, and Marilla was staring at me.
You don't expect any trouble?
Hey everyone, hope you loved the video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe for more awesome sci-fi content. You can also support us by hitting the thanks button or becoming a channel member. Your generosity helps us bring you more stellar stories. Every bit counts. Thanks a bunch.